Hey everybody, come on in. Welcome to the channel. I am the Desert Claw, and I know why you're all here today. You're here for the ultimate battle. Actually in two mangas this time. But first, the one we've all been waiting for. Arthur versus Dragon. That's right. The chapter has finally been translated. Finally. Alright. Let me get some stuff set up here real quick. Some music going. Let people come in. If you are coming in here, hit the like button. Apparently it helps out the stream, I guess. And subscribe for more content. Okay. I can't wait. So, chapter got translated. Here we go. Chapter 263. The Battle of Legend. Arthur versus Dragon starts. So, clearly, last chapter we saw Arthur dashing off using his new zoom spell from Dragon Quest, whatever. And in this chapter, Yu is very surprised by Arthur's new abilities because it even defies the reality that he came from, where the most fantastical thing that he saw was people with fire powers. Now Arthur has added to that arsenal in Adolla by using the most powerful ability in Adolla, your imagination. So he asks Vulcan how Arthur got so powerful. And Vulcan just says, oh, he played a video game. He played your average Super Nintendo game. Not Nintendo. Nintendo. And Yu is like super surprised by it. He's like, yeah, Arthur just finished an RPG on the Super Nintendo and leveled up to the max. And Yu has a moment here that shows that he understands how this world works. While he's saying, he says he doesn't quite get it, but he gets it enough where he's like, I don't get it, but I understand the feeling. It's like how you feel super strong after watching a bunch of kung fu movies. So anybody who's out there right now wants to get pumped up, read or watch something fictional or play something, and everyone's gonna get an automatic level up. And you ask if Arthur's gonna be able to win, and yeah, Vulcan's like, yeah, he's got my Excalibur that I made for him. And so Arthur flies off into a volcano in the middle of nowhere. It says the coast of Tama Bay, which, okay, how fast and how far away was that? And obviously Dragon's already come back to Earth. He didn't want to stay out in space like Cars from JoJo. And, yeah, everybody can become powerful by imagination. Play your video games, read your books, watch your movies. And you too will become a god. So Dragon's is waiting him, and it's very funny because the panels have this, like, archaic look to them. Like, they completely change based on this event. It's given this, like, almost like narrator who's being overly dramatic. It's like, simultaneously at the volcano that just appeared off the coast of Tama Bay, where the great dragon awaits his sworn enemy, thunder reverberates across the land. Like, it's just, it's ridiculous. And then you get to this, I got the panel up right now. You get the introduction. It's almost like, it reminds me not of like a wrestling introduction, because that's way more like grandiose. This reminds me of like a fighting game, like Blaze Blue or Guilty Gear, for like the 2 or 3 seconds when a fighter comes on screen and introduces themselves, or Street Fighter. And so you got the Violet Flash, which is Arthur, and he does his fighting game quip. My apologies for keeping you waiting. And then the Great Dragon, it's like, what took you so long? I spared you enough time, have I not? And now, like, in the next panel, it has them standing 2D, like they're in a 2D fighter, but they're still talking. He's like, were you able to keep yourself occupied while I was gone? And Arthur just kind of shrugs him off. And Dragon can tell that he's more powerful, so he's like, what could have happened in such a short amount of time? And Arthur then goes on to tell him, because Arthur is king of role-playing. Arthur is King LARPer. I battled to the death with my closest friend, and I lost my comrades in battle with demons. My home village was even set ablaze, and after this grand journey, I have become the Night King. Yeah, it could be Arthur's narration. That's a good. It's a really good thought. And so he does his proclamation, and obviously none of those things really happen in the real world, but they happen in Dragon Question. And Dragon laments, "There is little time before the destruction of this world. Let us hope that you will hold together then." And Arthur says, "This world shall not be destroyed. I shall defeat you and put a stop to your despair." Which, God, I would love to see how Arthur picks up on this, because this is exactly what Sumier said. The powerful beings in the world right now have to stop despairing. It doesn't matter if all the people stop. It has to be anybody who matters, the main characters on both sides, the Fire Force and the White Clad. I don't know if Charon dying changes that, because he went out a true believer. So maybe them leaving the mortal plane diminishes the power. I don't know. So he says, "Despair no longer, for I am here." And it's, it's because Dragon wants a worthy opponent, so he's always in despair. And now in the next panel, he's clearly happy. So here's one thing I want to point out. So apparently the actual translation, according to the team, is Arthur's ability is something like purple electricity. And if you look here, Arthur now is not just using fire powers, he's manifesting or using electricity around him. And in the translation, it's violent flash, which is something he's used for a long time, but it's clearly upgraded. And what's interesting is, if you've ever played Dragon Quest, every hero character gets access to an ability called Giga Slash. And Giga Slash in the games is an electric attack. Your sword becomes electric, and it's usually an attack that hits everybody on the screen. Oh yeah, that totally does remind me of All Might. "Fear not, I am here." It's a good catch. It's been a while. I only watch the anime Hero Academia. I don't keep up with the manga. I probably should. But yeah, so he's clearly using Giga Slash, and to back up my claim, Dragon launches Arthur into the heavens with his Dragon Blast, and Arthur's able to just, I guess he's casting Zoom constantly up there to fly, or he's almost walking on clouds, it looked like. But here you see the thunder from within the thundercloud accumulates inside the Holy Blade. So he is using thunder. He is using Giga Slash. His power has come from Dragon Quest. All of them. You can even tell by the pixelated look of some of these things. So he summons the Holy Blade, and he calls it Violent Flash Descent, and slashes Dragon across the chest. And mind you, a couple times Dragon has been nicked by Excalibur and taken damage, so he's not invincible anymore. And then after this move, Dragon is bleeding basically, and he's super happy about it. He's like, "My body," and then the violent flash strikes through, and Arthur's just got you. So the fight that ends there, and the fight is just getting started. But let's talk about what this means for other characters now. Once they figure out, like Joker, I'm curious. I have an idea. I wonder if it will happen. Can non-powered individuals, now that the realms are merged, could they imagine themselves power? Could Obi become powerful? Could Vulcan could Licht become powerful? Any non-empowered individual, or are there still rules? Do you still have to be, connected to Adolla per se? Like the bug, when you become fire powered, you're supposedly merging, or you're touching the veil through your doppelganger on either side, and that's giving you a greater connection to Adolla, which is manifesting powers from that. And now I'm starting to wonder, is the reason why the powers are fire is because of the narrative around the Holy Soul Church, the narrative around human combustion, all of these fire elements, and anytime somebody connected to Adolla via a bug or a natural occurrence, due to the collective unconscious of what is around in the community, everything just manifested as fire. Yeah, so I can now non-fire. I agree. Can they just imagine what they want? And I'm wondering now, I'm even questioning the manifestation of fire in the real world, if that was just something that is, because I guess Adolla is supposed to represent hell too, so maybe that's just a natural thing. But now our entire, you know how like in a manga, one thing that annoys me about a lot of series, it has started with DBZ, is power levels. As soon as power levels get introduced, it doesn't ruin the series for me, but it makes me roll my eyes. Like Seven Deadly Sins had this problem. They induced power levels, like I think like after chapter 60 or something, and it just, and you know, it changes the dynamic. It doesn't ruin the series. It just makes it weird. Like there's one reason why, and if you go back to Dragon Ball Super, why the tournament, the final tournament arc is so exciting is because power levels really don't matter there, because you're not going power for power. You're going to knock people off the stage, so it becomes more of a who is smarter and powerful, who's going to win. And when you introduce power levels, it's always like if the other person has a higher power level, you're screwed. Black Clover kind of has this problem too, but not really. They have inserted power levels. They have like stages 1 through 7, arcane stage, and stage 0 or whatever, right? But I don't. The way that they have that set up, I don't know if that's really going to ruin the series. But my point is Fire Force, instead of introducing power levels, they introduced a new system in a weird way in the final arc of the series, which I find very, very interesting. And this could just be exclusive to Arthur. There could not be one character right now that even learns or figures this out, except maybe Arthur's dad. If we ever see that guy again. So, I don't know. I just wanted to kind of just speak out loud of things that I'm just like questioning right now about the series in general. So, part 1 of Dragon versus Arthur. I heard that there might have been a delay in the next chapter, 264, because Okubo was still drawing Dragon versus Arthur in part 2. I don't know. We'll see. But tell me what you thought about this week's chapter. I thought it was really good. The next week's chapter is called He Who Transcends. So Arthur is going to continue to transcend beyond here. I hope we get to see Plasma Mantle again. I want to see Plasma. You remember Plasma Mantle when he first ran into Dragon and his imagination was going wild and he spawned a Plasma cape? I want that back. So I hope we get to see that. But yeah. Yeah, so I don't think on the power levels, I agree with you. I don't think Black Clover's power levels are really, they're more like just, they're just descriptors. They're not going to, because Seven Deadly Sins, I'll talk about this before we move on to Black Clover, but Seven Deadly Sins adopted DBZ's power level scaling, but then also changing it. So like you had a physical power level and then a magic power level, which, like King had an insane magic power level and so did Merlin, but their physicality was garbage. When you put a number on that, I think it makes things that. But Black Clover is just like a scale definition. Like Sekirei, for example, is arcane, which is supposed to be the best, but her power on its own is not devastating, really. So, I don't know. We'll see about that. But speaking of Black Clover, okay, so all my favorite manga this week have big battles, so last week we got to see the first weapon grow extremely large, and Asta went after the big giant fireball in the sky, and wasn't able to completely take it out with that sword alone. So he's only at the beginning of the manga, he has 2 minutes left before the transformation cancels, which is very important right now. So the first sword was not enough to cancel out the giant power that's coming down on everybody. So he has to summon the second sword, Demon Dweller, which is the one that absorbs other people's magic, and then he's able to then shoot that magic or whatever at the cross. So he goes after the giant ball. He's able to kind of slice it up into various, disperses it, but now it's going wild, so he had to pull out the Demon Destroyer, and if you remember, Demon Destroyer is able to dispel magic around him, and he's able to basically get rid of it. Now, what I find interesting is during this fight, Liebe has some commentary, and he's speaking out, or he's thinking in his head what Asta said to him back when they first designed their pact, where Asta thanked Liebe for making him powerful. Well, here, Liebe says, "What is this guy? I was the weakest one on the first level of the underworld. I could never have been a match for these supreme devils." So he's saying, I think Lilith and Nama are the top devils from the first level. So they were at the top of the hierarchy of the first level. So he has a direct relationship with this devil we're fighting, who is also part of the squad that was bullying him, that tossed him into the air, which caused him to go in the human world. And so he thinks back to when Asta had made that pact, and Asta's thanking him. He says, "That's my line, you moron. Thanks to you, I can fight these guys at the highest level." Which, I still think, I said this back when Asta's mother first got introduced to the series. With her ability was her magic power was able to put things into objects, but she had a passive ability, we'll call it a side effect from World Trigger, where she would absorb energy and or mana from anybody near her. And it's too interesting that there's a coincidence that both Asta and Liebe basically have that going, and I think their powers are synonymous with each other. I think maybe Asta, they both don't have magic, but maybe they're both sucking out energy in a certain way. Like Asta's an energy monster in a weird way. He is always full of energy. He can work out all the time. He's extremely physical. Something's going on with him. So, let's see here. So he basically thanks Asta to be able to fight, and then it goes back to Lilith and Nama combined, and they are like, "What is this guy? My attacks don't work on him. He's able to attack me. There shouldn't be anyone like that." And they're speaking as like an elite species, right? Like, how dare these people? I never had to fear for my life. And they're speaking out. It's like all life exists to entertain me, and yet this is no longer fun because you're no longer in a part where you will have the upper hand. So she's like, "What is this emotion?" And in Liebe, and I don't know if he's able. If you remember back when they fought the first devil, Liebe basically talked to the final devil before he went down. So I'm wondering if they're able to speak on like a different level, but he says, "You don't have to know. You never need to learn. The highest devils in the first level of the underworld, no one was a threat to you. So, of course, you can't understand. It's called fear." And now Lilith and Nama combined are trying to back off because they figured out that Asta and Liebe's form will not hold together. So they're trying to play chicken with them. They're running away. And at the last moment, my boy Nock come out, and he grabbed them with his shadow magic, slowing them down just enough for Asta to go in for the kill. And he's basically lamenting, like, he goes, "At least I can hold you for a moment." He's like, "I won't allow that. What irony, Supreme Devil! You have vast magic, and what you fear are a human and a devil who have no magic at all." And Asta screams out, "Get your dirty hands off this world!" He slices him with the Demon Dweller sword in two, and just at that moment, they split in two, and the brothers win, basically. And they're having a victory thing. It's interesting because they're both holding one of the weapons that comes from the Black Clover Grimoire, which is one of my questions was, once this pact happened, were we going to see Liebe in full form in the real world, or would he be the chibi form that showed up when Asta was in the first level of the Union mode, or how Nock's devils are? So I don't know if this is this going to be like Liebe is going to be walking around a Black Bull base. I don't know, but yeah. You just missed we covered Fire Force. Welcome. So this chapter ends. It was much longer than last week's chapter. Last week's chapter was super short. I think it was less than 10 pages. This was about 17 pages. So this was a really good chapter, and it ends this fight, but it raises some questions now. Asta, can he do Devil Union more than once a day? If not, is Asta out of the fight for 24 hours? And I don't mean completely. He still has access to his swords and stuff, but he's not going to be the main contender right now. So I wonder if they're going to try to rush to stop the guy from the Diamond Kingdom that's speeding this process up so no more devils of this sort come out, or if level 2 devils are going to start pouring out immediately, and the rest of the Magic Knight squad, including the Black Bulls, the Elves, the Heart Kingdom people, they're going to have to hold off while Asta recovers, because clearly his transformation is up, unless they, Tabata pulls out of his ass that Asta can do it twice in one day. So... Oh yeah, Magna Zora will probably show up next chapter, I would imagine, or the one after that. They wouldn't tease them for no reason, or they're staying in the shadows for a reason, and they may show up at the last minute when people need them the most. But yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be really interesting because Noct is taken out. I doubt Noct can fight at full power. He's gonna need Mimosa or somebody else who can heal to heal him. Asta's is not damaged, but he's just out of mana, so to say. I don't know what you would call Asta's energy source. We know Charlotte is still fighting the fully formed 100% Dark Triad. So is Jack the Ripper, and so is Yuno. At least that's where we last saw them. So where I haven't seen much of the other Magic Knight squads. I haven't seen Nozel. I haven't seen any of them too. So maybe it's going to focus on them and what they're doing outdoors. I don't know, but it's going to be very interesting to see how this battle goes now that their key player has a handicap of sorts with having to not be able to use Devil Union. So I don't know. Tell me what you guys think. Do you think things are going to get crazy with Asta on the bench for a little bit? He might not even be on the bench. I could be exaggerating, but we'll have to see. But yeah, this week's chapter really good. Much longer than the chapter from the week before. The week before was laughably long, or short, not long, very short. So, all right, let me get a drink of water. We'll talk about the next subject. Okay. Episode 2, Tokyo Revengers. I hope you guys are watching this series. I'm actually finding it to be very interesting. So, last week we left off where Takamichi, which is the main character in this series, went back into the future, met with Naoto. See, I'm getting their names right because I took time to learn everybody's name. And Naoto showed up in his hospital bed and begged him to help save his sister. Well, Naoto takes Takamichi back to his apartment, and they basically, for several days, talk about what happened to cause his sister to die. And they're going over the history of this Majin gang, the one that was responsible for his sister's death. And Naoto is basically putting as much information into Takamichi's head about the present day and the gang as much as he possibly can to stop them in the past. And then they talk about how they can go back into time again. And Naoto is very perceptive and says, you came back to the present once you shook hands with me. So all you got to do is shake hands with me again. And they do so. And he goes back into the past. And if you look over at this screenshot over here, he starts into a fight. So one of my questions about this series last week was, every time you go back in time, do you go back to the first start point, or is there another one? And it seems it's neither of those things. It seems like it's a one-to-one with the present day. So if you go back to the present day and you wait 3 days, then when you go back in times, you'll go 3 days past where you went the first time. That's how I interpret that. So if you went back in the future and waited 2 weeks, same thing. You go back in time, it'll be 2 weeks ahead of the time where you were before. So he literally jumps back in time into a fight and gets knocked out in one hit. And there's this big fight club going on with the lower levels of this Majin gang that Takamichi's crew was forced to join because their gang got destroyed by this gang and got absorbed, and they are basically minions for them now. And so after this fight, there's apparently people that had money on Takamichi, and they lost a bunch of money. So after the fight, he tries to think a way out of this, and he asks if he can be introduced to the head of the Majin gang and all of the current, I guess you call it upperclassmen, or they're like high schoolers but they're high enough in the gang that run these things, turn on him and just they beat him bloody for hours. So much that I think it's his left leg is like, it looks like it's been sprained due to the amount of damage they took. And at this moment, they take off, and at this moment we get to see a little a bit of what happened to Takemichi the first time around in time, where he ran away and he was considering that again. So I started to think about how this story is going to go, and what they're trying to do to sell the story is that Takemichi is doing this to save the life of somebody else. But I also think what's happening here is Takemichi is doing this to save his own life, because what happened to him is he ran away from everything. He became risk averse. He let anybody walk all over him. He got crappy jobs for it. He didn't move up in life. He didn't have anybody in his life because he was too afraid to do anything that would consider a risk. And sometimes having a friendship is a risk. Sometimes having a relationship is a risk. So he became lame. And so to me, this manga, just by watching 2 episodes of the anime, I think it's going to be more or less the main driver will be to save the girl, but the underlying premise will be to save him to become something better than he was before. So he does realize that. And he goes and visits Hina, the girl, again, and she kind of gives him hope once again, and he takes off, and he starts to devise a plan on how he's going to infiltrate this gang. So he goes back to the fight club the next day with his friends, and before he doesn't really like say anything at first, but one of his friends, who's much weaker than him, is going to be forced to fight, and he's just going to get demolished. And when the friend goes up to fight, he basically screams and starts to say, he starts coming down. He gets a lot of confidence, and he challenges the main leader of this fight club to a fight. And then that's where the episode ends. So he'd already taken heavy damage the previous day, and I can assume that I guess you could call it his persona from the past, had to know how to fight, even though his future self was much weaker and much scareder. Is that a word? So he just challenged somebody who's clearly going to be a much better fighter than him. So that's where the episode ends. But next week, it's going to be him versus this guy. And this is how he's going to use this dude as a jumping platform to get up into the ranks of this gang, the Majin gang, to stop 2 individuals from basically becoming friends, is how I got it. So the gang doesn't get big enough to get to the point where they end up killing Hina or Hinata, and it was Naoto before he was warned. So next week it's gonna be him versus this gang leader, and I'm based on what I've seen so far, I don't know how he's gonna be able to do it, but it's possible that Takemichi knows how to fight, but doesn't have the willpower, or he gets nervous or scared, and he just ends up losing. We'll see. Maybe he gets over that and he's able to actually hang in there from also being damaged from the previous day. Because in the scene when he challenges the gang leader, he's still beaten up from the day prior. So it's going to be an interesting fight. But that was this week's episode. So we got confirmation on how time travel works. You have to shake hands with Naoto. We got confirmation on how time flows after you go back in time. So time flows 1-to-1 from the present and the future. Is how I look at it. But things that probably won't be answered for a long time is who started this time leap? Because somebody pushed him off the train tracks in front of a train, which started this whole deal. That, I would imagine, that's going to be something that's going to be held until the end of the series, or very close to the end of the series, on how that started. Or they'll never explain it at all. But how the time leap power came to be is going to be something that's going to be of great speculation to me. So, because it's basically a crime gang drama mixed with this time travel, kind of like that movie Looper. Remember, if you ever seen that movie Looper, the premise is that these mafioso types send people who work for them into the past with gold, and then their younger selves have to kill them and take the gold, so they're killing their older selves for money. It's a really interesting interesting concept. where you're doing this like mafioso crime drama thing, but with these sci-fi elements. I like it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next week on episode 3. So if you haven't checked out Tokyo Revengers, do check it out. It is on Crunchyroll. I don't know what day it simulcasts on. I think it's Friday, maybe Saturday. I watch all my anime in the same day, which is usually Sunday. So I don't know exactly what day it comes out, but yeah. So that's my coverage this week. I'm actually really satisfied with this week's manga. I do read other things too, like Dr. Stone. I just don't really have anything I want to talk about, but that hit a pretty interesting point this week. That was I think it's coming into its final arc. I think I said that before, but I need to start reading Jujutsu Kaisen too, now that the series is over, and catch up where I was. But yeah, we'll see. But that's all I got this week. So for all you here, like and subscribe and all that stuff. Leave a comment. Let's talk more about manga. That's all I got. So I hope you guys all have a good one. Peace.